let's talk about breaking a bad habit, because I feel like that's something that people, I know for me at least, that's more of a challenge.
Yeah. So in the book, I talk about what I call the 4 laws of behavior change. And for building a good habit, I'll just give this first and then we'll transition to breaking a bad one. They're roughly the 4 things that you want to happen if you're going to build a good habit is you want it to be obvious, you want it to be attractive, you want it to be easy, and you want it to be satisfying. So you want the cues to be obvious and available and visible. You want the habit to be kind of motivating and exciting to you. You want it to be easy and convenient and frictionless to do. And you want it to be enjoyable. Now, if you want to break a bad habit, then you just do the opposite of those 4. So rather than making it obvious, you want to make it invisible. So unsubscribe from emails, don't keep junk food in the house. If you're trying to follow a new diet, don't follow food bloggers on Instagram, like reduce exposure to the cue. Rather than making it attractive, you want to make it unattractive. So we can talk about some ways to do that. Rather than making it easy, you want to make it difficult. So you want to increase friction, add steps between you and the behavior. As a little simple example of this, one interesting thing I came across when I was researching the book was some people who they always struggled with biting their nails. And then the way that they kicked the bad habit was that, and they weren't even intending to do this, but they got Invisalign for their teeth. And once they had the liners on, they couldn't bite their nails anymore. And so it was like, that was the first time where they had to go through this, 18-month process of getting their teeth straightened with these liners. And through that time, they stopped biting their nails. And the reason is just what I'm mentioning here, which is that kind of inversion of the 3rd law, make it difficult. They couldn't do it. It was high friction. And then the 4th and final thing is rather than making it satisfying, so you want your good habits to be enjoyable, you want your bad habits to be unenjoyable or to have some kind of cost or consequence to the behavior, especially if it's an immediate cost. If there's some kind of immediate cost to it, then you're likely to avoid it in the future. If right now, when you take a bite of a donut, it's really sweet and sugary and tasty and enjoyable, it's like favorable. But if every time you took a bite of a donut, someone like punched you in the face, then all of a sudden, very immediately, it's unfavorable. And you're probably not going to bite a donut that much more. You only need to get punched a few times before you're like, oh, I don't like how this is going. So make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. That's like, there are many ways to do each of those things, but that's like the 10,000 foot view for breaking a bad habit.
Let's say somebody has a bad habit of every morning they wake up, they get coffee, but they get a pastry with it. And they're like, oh, I want to break that bad habit of having that pastry. It's not good for me. I actually don't feel good when I eat it. Like what would be a strategy of making it unattractive?
Yeah. So, first, I'll say of the 4 things that I mentioned, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. I think the first and the third are the best places to focus. Okay. So make it invisible by reducing exposure. So like in the pastry example, don't walk by that bakery, take a different route to work so that you're not tempted, or make it difficult. So increasing friction so that you aren't able to do that habit. Those I think are the 2 best strategies for breaking bad habits. Part of the reason, and this perhaps is what you're getting at or why you're interested in asking this question, which is how could you make a pastry unattractive? Like your brain already knows that it tastes good.
Exactly.
So that's a very difficult thing to do. Now, it can happen. For example, just to continue with like a food or a bread or a carb example, let's say you go downstairs every morning for breakfast and you make some toast. And then, a couple weeks from now, you read a book that convinces you that carbs are the devil and grain is terrible and you should never touch it again. Well, some people read books like that and they'll have this sort of like epiphany where it totally changes how they feel about it. And they go down the next morning and they don't think, I need to make toast. They think, I got to throw this bread out. Like we'll never buy grains again. So things like that can happen. It's just that I don't know that process is very reliable. I don't know that you can design it very well. And so I don't recommend like have an epiphany as a strategy. I do think that you can gradually change your feelings about things. And that's what I talk about with identity and habits, which we can talk more about that in a little bit. But there are some things to do there. Instead, I think that for making things unattractive in the short term, you got a couple different things you could use. One thing you could do is what scientists call a commitment device. So to use like another health example, let's say that you go to bed tonight and you're like, all right, I'll listen to this guy talk about habits today. So tomorrow's going to be the day. I'm going to go for a run. and you set your alarm and it's like, I don't know, 6 a.m. or something. And 6 rolls around and your bed is warm. It's cold outside. You're like, well, I'll press snooze and sleep in. But if you come back to today and you text a friend and you say, hey, let's meet at the park at 6:15 and go for a run. Well, now 6 a.m. rolls around and your bed is still warm and it's still cold outside. But if you don't get up and go for a run, you're a jerk because you leave your friend at the park all alone. So you've simultaneously made it more attractive to get up and go for a run and less attractive to press snooze and sleep in. You haven't changed how hard the run is, right? Like the run's going to suck just the same as it did before, but you have kind of changed the calculus that's going on in your mind about whether you want to do it or not. So that's one example of what I mean by changing how attractive a habit might be. And there are a lot of short-term strategies for that. In the long run, I think the best option for this, for changing how attractive something is you need to shift your identity. You need to start looking at yourself in a new way. For example, in my case, I don't want to skip workouts because like I want to be the kind of person who doesn't miss workouts. That's kind of part of the identity that I'm trying to build. And I like myself more when I'm that person. And I have a lot of evidence that I enjoy working out and that it's part of like a good day for me. And so now it's so much a part of my identity that it becomes easier to follow through on it. And that I think is like the real way that you make a habit more attractive, or that you make the bad habit, in this case of skipping, unattractive, is by shifting your identity. But that can take a while, like that's more of a long-term process. And some of these short-term strategies, like a commitment device, can maybe help you get going in the moment while you're trying to build that identity.